I was always a musical kid. My father and mother were always pushing me into some sort of drama or music or singing or something like that. I think my father, in desperation, bought me my first violin for my 14th birthday, so I started pretty late. But as soon as I opened a case on that day, I remember distinctly falling in love with the instrument. I knew I was going to spend the rest of my life with it.
And can you remember the first tune you played?
Well, the first tune I played was... Actually, I'll play it how it sounded. Not very well. Look, growing up in Tamworth, I think, was it's a quintessential part of who I am as a fiddler. I became a country fiddle player, and I'm very proud of that. My early liaisons with the legends of Australian country music. When I was 15-year-old, about a year after I started playing, I recorded my first fiddle session at the famous Hadley recording studios in Tamworth. I played the melody to What a Friend We Have in Jesus very badly behind one of Rick and Thel Carey's famous gospel monologues, and I mean, that fact I'm very proud of. It's gone on from there as the years have gone by. Playing with many of the legends of Australian country music, it's been a wonderful career so far.
Has it been hard, though, to be a country fiddler as opposed to any other genre of Australian music?
Probably so, because for the first 10 or 15 or so years, you are closeted by the country music industry, and, you know, in other words, you don't play jazz, or you don't, even though I did, or classical music as such. And when you come to the city, there's not that many avenues for a country music fiddle player. They either want rock and roll, or jazz, or other forms of music, not so much country. I remember when I first arrived in Sydney after touring with a fellow called Buddy Williamson, the father of Australian country music, in fact. I toured with him in 1979, as has done many famous instrumentalists in Australia, Tommy and Phil Emmanuel, to name but two. In 1981, I came to Sydney, and I joined one of the biggest club shows in Australia at the time. Luckily for me, it was called Are You Ready for the Country? So it was fortuitous, I suppose.
And so where did the connection with John start? Was it really...
About the same time. I remember seeing John come to Tamworth. I saw John without realising it with a band called Sydney Radio in the late 70s, when he was painted up as a clown and had a red nose on, doing rock and roll stuff. It was actually a heavy rock band at the time, and he was a young fella just sort of stepping out of the mould of what he used to do, just to try something else for a change. Nobody knew it was John Williamson in Sydney Radio. Nobody knew it. A couple of years later, I saw him come through Tamworth with a band called Crow, John Williamson and Crow. And that's when my first liaisons with John. I was only a kid playing the fiddle at the time, and I remember going to see him at Katingle Hotel. And there's only about 20 people there, I think, at the time, and it was a great afternoon. It was about 1981 when I got a phone call from John for the first time to come into the studio, and we recorded Hawkesbury River Lovin'.
And what was that like?
It was a wonderful experience. I mean, apart from the fact that John was relatively not unknown, but certainly wasn't the John Williamson we all know and love today. He was just a mate, just a friend, writing some great songs, and it was just a wonderful experience to be a part of those early days.
And the tractor, remembers, in the fence, tingling all that barbed wire. Oh, strike me, Mum and I can't take it anymore.
God strike me, Mum and I can't take it. God strike me, Mum and I can't take it. God strike me, Mum and I can't...
If I wasn't brought up in Tamworth, if I didn't play the fiddle, I'm a desperate actor. Yeah, I'm an entertainer at heart, but I love acting, but there's very few parts for a short, balding fiddle player.
So, what do you think has been the highlight of your career to date as a fiddle player?
There's been so many highlights. The stuff that I've done on my own volition, of course, I'm very proud of. The fact that I've achieved somewhat of a legend in the industry that I chose. Having the wax figure in Tamworth now, the Hands of Fame, the golden guitars, having all that, but creating Pixieland and creating Pixieland Country Theatre in Tamworth for the last 10 years and being a feature artist at the Tamworth Country Music Festival and telling stories and putting those shows together and raising the profile of the real Australian country music, not the rock and roll on a cowboy hat or the pop music with a pedal steel, but the real Australian country music, and telling people the story of people like Buddy Williams, Tex Morton, Slim Dusty, Rick and Thel Carey, the old GP Gordon Parsons, Stanley Costa, Chad Morgan. They're all my mates, and I respect them so dearly, and I think that's been the biggest, or my most proudest thing that I've done in Australian country music. The big entertainment centre was opened in Tamworth a few years ago now, the Regional Entertainment Centre, the TREC, the Tamworth Regional Entertainment Centre. And it was certainly a big day for Tamworth to have this 5,000-seat auditorium opened up, and I was asked to be one of the guest performers on that night. In fact, it turned out that it was one of the highlights of the night, because I wrote a song especially for the night called "Cool to Be a Cowboy," and I came out and performed that with two boot scooting boys either side of me. And for a lot of the people that were there assumed me, who hadn't seen me before. There were a lot of industry people, and they assumed me to be just a fiddle player. But it certainly opened some eyes that night when I came out and did this dance routine in the middle of the song. The two boys dancing with me, the big band behind me, 9-piece band, and of course Gina Jeffries and Becky Cole, Pam Drysdale, and Mary Lou, who's now an ABC presenter, sang harmonies for me, and it was a wonderful, wonderful piece of video.
Are there any limits to what Pixie won't do?
No, absolutely none. I mean, this is the industry I chose. This is what I do. I would literally do anything, and in fact, I have. Over the last few years, I've performed in professional musicals. I played a real live fiddler on stage in Fiddler on the Roof, which is not really a country music thing at all. It was great being a live fiddler, the figment of Tevia's imagination on stage, dancing with him and being a part of his performance in a huge production of Fiddler on the Roof. I've played Ali Hackham, the Persian peddler in Oklahoma. So there's been a few strings to the bow, as it were.
What's it like being back with John on this reunion tour?
It's hard to describe. When we first talked about it, it was like we always assumed that something like this might happen one day. You know, we're still mates, and I've still recorded on John's stuff over the years from leaving him in '94. You know, when I let him go his own way. I'm only joking. Is that going to be on the video? But when I wanted to go out and do my own thing in '94, and I left John. And I've had some great success, and we talked about it over the years. I've recorded the albums with him still, and when the offer came along, I just jumped at it straight away. But it's remarkable how I can't describe. It's like the 10 years hasn't been there. It's like from the first gig, it was like there we were, still back doing the show. It was just wonderful.